Welcome to Seggs Talk Radio, a podcast that explores kink and sex through candid and curious conversations. Join me and expert guests in exploring taboos and unpacking what it means to be sex and kink positive. Go check out our new website, sextalkradio.com. That is SEGGS talkradio.com. And I hope you enjoy the episode.
But I think we need to normalize the exploration of different activities in bed and like laughing about it.
Definitely.
And finding out that you don't like it, and that's totally okay. Or,
1000%.
Maybe you like it, but it's a little awkward, so you need to refine that. And you need to give yourself more time and maybe find some resources online for you to discover how it actually works.
I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Butter. Butter Wellness makes external prostate massagers for men. They're extremely high powered, no insertion necessary, and they give really incredible prostate orgasms. You can get 20% off by going to butterwellness.com and use code SEGGS, SEGGS. This episode of Seggs Talk Radio is brought to you by the HUD app. The HUD app is changing the face of modern and casual dating by giving users a really fun and flirty interface, and also it has bedroom features where you can select all of the kinky and naughty things you're into and show those to potential future partners. I personally love using the HUD app, and I think it's a great system for finding kinky people near you. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk. That is HUDAPP.com/SEGGS talk TALK for more. One of the many things that I love about Mochi Melt is that it is an overall luxury experience using it. It tastes delicious and it looks gorgeous on the nightstand. If you want to try out Mochi Melt for yourself, go to mochimelt.com and use code THEA, THEA, for 15% off of your entire order. I recently created an account on sensually.com. It is an online platform for people to seek out and offer sensual and sex positive experiences. This can look like being a BDSM provider, a sex coach, a escort. It covers a wide range of themes, and you can really find what you're looking for. And it is completely free to create an account or to explore. To learn more and browse both in-person and virtual experiences, go to sensuali.com. Yeah, Natassia Miller, welcome to Seggs Talk Radio.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. And thanks for making the trek. I feel pretty honored that people are flying in.
Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite podcasts, so it's really an honor.
What's your fave? What's your fave episode?
Carly Sledever.
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
She's great.
Yeah.
I've been listening to her podcast about like the world's most expensive sex club. That was in LA,
yes.
Sanctum.
Yes, I have read about that before the episode.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's wild.
I actually, she just intro'd me to the guy who started it. I want to have him on. It's
that
wild.
Would be huge.
Yeah. Have you been to any play party type things in New York?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. I did go to a sex club in Brazil and with my ex, and we stayed there for 10 minutes. It was the oddest experience for me. I didn't enjoy it at all. We went twice, and the first time we felt really uncomfortable, and so we decided to go into one of the individual booths, and nobody could see us. It was just the two of us. We're already here, so let's try to make something out of it. And we didn't realize that there were these holes in the wall where people could see you.
God.
And somebody put out their hands and tried to grab me.
Oh no.
My ex started slapping his hand off. I don't know if it was a he or a she, but and
that's not cool.
And so we ended it right there and we went home.
Wow.
And so I felt like I gave that a shot, and it's just not something that I'm curious about at this moment of my life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like a little bit more of the experienced kink and BDSM world, because in that scenario you would know that there are people there and that's going to happen, and they would ask before touching. Never heard of that happening.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up, your background, and kind of what led you into this world of sensuality and education and sex products.
So I'm originally from São Paulo, Brazil. And I went to an American school there, and also grew up in a very American environment. So that's also why I don't have an accent.
Yeah.
And my mom was transferred to Miami when I was 10. So I also spent part of my childhood, adolescence in the U.S. Went to college in New York and worked in finance. A part of my family works in finance. It was just kind of this natural track. I moved back to Brazil after college because I'd met my ex and went after him.
Met him in New York.
I actually met him in Brazil.
Oh, okay.
I
You were traveling there.
I took a year off from college and worked at a hedge fund. And during my time there, I met him.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In Brazil. Hedge fund in Brazil.
Hedge fund in Brazil. Yeah. Okay. I think I always had this desire to go back and explore what it was like to live there as an adult.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun.
Totally. Good partying, I've heard.
Yes. And then when I was around 29, already 28 years old, actually, I realized it's just not what I wanted to do. It's not the legacy that I wanted to leave behind. And I didn't really enjoy what I did. I liked the client-facing aspect of it. And I was always giving presentations and connecting with people. I love that part.
Yeah.
I decided that I want to become an entrepreneur. And because I'm also American, I have the liberty of moving back easily.
Right.
And I went to college in New York. So I had my network there already. And I wanted to explore. And that's when I came into the wellness world. I started with another company. It was a fitness-focused company.
That you built?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
A friend of mine who went to college with me developed a new movement modality, and she wanted to scale it.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But unfortunately, we launched right before COVID hit. And
for an in-person type model, right?
Yes. Oh. And we tried to pivot online, did that for a year. Unfortunately, didn't work out.
Yeah.
And as I was reflecting on what I wanted to do next, I loved being an entrepreneur. And I've always loved talking about sex and relationships. I've had so much ease. You know, I'm just curious about people's experiences and also why we have such a hard time talking about it. We're so ashamed of it, even when things have rarely happened in our lives, like especially when we're really young and we have very little experience. We're even ashamed about that.
Yeah.
And I decided to dive into the sexual wellness industry.
I love that. It's interesting that you talk about like always sharing about it with ease or talking about it with ease. I found that it took me like quite a few episodes into doing the podcast to be like comfortable sharing at least my own personal sexual stories.
Yeah.
And even to this day, there's still stuff to work through that comes up as I share stuff.
Totally.
It's vulnerable and it's very taboo. And before I had the podcast, I was actually doing social media around helping women heal their relationship with money. And I realized that like sex and money are correlated in this weird taboo way. And you probably had some experience with that being in finance. Like maybe were you more comfortable talking about it as well, or?
Yes, I think I've always had a lot of male friends, and
they always talk about money and sex.
Yeah,
or sort of.
But it's generally not as common for men to speak to, women about their sexual experiences unless, they're in a romantic relationship together. I think I've just had a lot of comfort in being able to talk about it and kind of extracting that from my friends.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much, especially being in male-dominated financial environments where sometimes, they just forget that you're there because there's so few women that are working on the floor. Ugh. And they would say a lot of things that I think for me just gave me a lot of insight into the male psyche.
Yeah. What's going on over there in the male psyche?
There's a lot of infidelity that goes on, a lot of questioning of how do you stay really happy in a long-term relationship or marriage when you have kids and when you're desiring other people, when you work in an environment 12 hours a day, you see somebody excelling at what they do, you're bound to be attracted to that person. And so a lot
workplace infidelity,
maybe not even in the same workplace, but people in the industry, you're going to meetings or conferences, you're seeing people, things happen.
Yeah.
And I just saw a lot, heard a lot. And it was something that I think has made me become a much more pragmatic person around this. And while my husband and I are monogamous, we talk very openly about, how do we approach this conversation farther down the road?
Right.
If we do succeed and we're in this, decades together, when you feel attracted to somebody else, what are you going to do?
Yes.
And it's a reality that we face.
Definitely.
So I think it's given me a very strong foundation in that sense that a lot of especially women, like we have a hard time confronting that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think communication is so important with that kind of stuff because attraction to other people feels pretty inevitable and human and animal. And like you and I were chatting about yesterday, like a lot of the relationship structures we explore in are designed for people that live like 30, 40 years, you know? Yes. And we're living very long lives. And so like, yeah, what does that look like 20 years into a marriage or relationship?
And it's possible. You can have lasting sexual connection with your partner. We get really lazy.
Mm-hmm. It becomes very routine.
It becomes very routine. But we put in an effort to, you know, eat different things and do different workouts. And we're dedicated to bringing that variety into other aspects of our lives. And I think because we've been taught that sex should be spontaneous and effortless, we don't make an effort into bringing more variety in. But also, we lack any education as to what that variety can even look like.
Yeah.
And we don't know who to turn to. I think luckily we're right now living in a time of sexual wellness where so many more resources like your podcast and my business are coming to life and providing people with that insight. But for a really long time, people just had nowhere to turn.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned the spontaneous element. I think that's a pretty big myth with sex and connection, especially if two people are working full-time jobs or have kids. Like my friend Hannah is like a big fan of scheduling it on her Google Calendar with her partner. And then there's like buildup and anticipation and excitement. And like, I think that there's a lot of ways you can get creative. And I don't have kids and I'm not in a long-term partnership, but it seems like when people have kids, like what are the chances that two people working with kids are going to have this like hot, spicy moment together? You know, there has to be some planning and there's nothing wrong with that.
Totally.
At all.
I think the cool thing about planning is that it allows you to try new things together that you wouldn't normally in a spontaneous setup.
Moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. What was your relationship with sexuality like growing up in Brazil?
I was always very curious about it. I, grew up in the 90s, so 90s TV was really unhinged, especially in Brazil.
Okay.
And we all talk about it openly amongst Brazilians. We look back on it and it's pretty ludicrous, like what you would see on TV.
Do they have kind of like novellas type things?
There were novellas, but there were just these like big talk shows where you would have women dressed scandalously, like dancing right next to the talk show host, for example. And
I have to look into this.
Yeah. And I think there's just that concept that's like imprinted in you. Normally, you don't see like almost naked men behind a female talk show host, but you see that the other way around.
Yes.
And it just objectifies women so much and it sexualizes them. And I think if you're a young boy and you're seeing that on TV, you're already being conditioned to think that's how you treat women or how you think of women. So and for women, it's also just really confusing. Carly actually mentioned that in the episode, right? And
like Christina Aguilera and like all these women just like naked, like
which I lived
dripping.
That too because part of my childhood was also here in the US. And so it's really wild. You're living this like Madonna whore complex before you even understand what that means as a child.
Yes.
But I was always very curious about it. And I just remember talking to my friends, like, what must it feel like? It must be awesome. And when we get there.
I know. I was so excited.
I was so excited too.
And then
my first time, I was with my boyfriend in high school. We were both 16 and it was our first time together. We didn't know what we were doing. I just remember it hurt so much. I was like, this is what it was all about.
It was such a letdown. Also partially due to porn, in the sense that like, I think young teenage boys don't understand when most porn is like when the dick goes in, it's pleasureful and like the woman is just filled with pleasure and excitement. And so then when that happened when I was 16 as well, I was like, this isn't like what I've seen. This isn't like the movies. This isn't.
Yeah.
And it was a huge letdown because I had a lot of like sexually charged energy and curiosity and was like, what?
Exactly. And I remember in college, there was this girl who shared a story. She was hooking up with a guy from our dorm, and she was like, I orgasm all the time. And I'm like, what do you mean you orgasm all the time? I mean, I don't think I even really knew what an orgasm was at that time. And she said, yeah, I just sit on it and I come, and
lucky
some
ladies
women do.
some
yeah, but
women do.
I mean, it's the minority.
Yeah,
and so
20%
then
or
I
something.
started questioning, like, what's wrong with me?
Yep.
Because that doesn't happen to me. And it's obviously total lack of resources at the time.
Yeah.
This was, 2008. So
Totally.
it was very interesting because for a really long time, I thought that there was something wrong with me because I couldn't come just straight from vaginal penetration.
Yeah, I think it's only like 20% of women can come just from vaginal penetration. There usually needs to be clitoral stimulation involved. And
but even then, because of the shape of the clitoris and how it embraces your urethral wall, it needs enough time to be engorged with enough, blood and arousal so that you actually do come from vaginal penetration. Right? It's
Wait, explain this again.
So because of the shape of the clitoris, that's like a wishbone.
Yeah.
What it does is, the majority of the clitoris is actually internal, right? And so we need to have enough time to become aroused to be able to fill the entire, clitoris and the urethral sponge around it to be completely like erect, just like a penis is. But a penis becomes erect a lot in a much shorter period of time. And, most people are having sex, 10, 15 minutes. But women and people with clitorises need about 20 to 45 minutes. So we're not giving ourselves enough time to become fully aroused for our bodies to be able to come from vaginal penetration. We can achieve all different forms of orgasms. We just need to learn how to.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I've talked about that with another guest, like the time it takes, but I didn't know that about the clitoris. And I will say that I often like to have an orgasm and then have penetrative sex because penetrative sex feels so much better after an orgasm and after 15, 20 minutes of stimulation. That's probably why. That's fascinating.
But I think we also don't give ourselves enough variety in the foreplay. So we tend to think of foreplay more as oral.
Right.
And
I'm not a huge fan.
Well, I
like doing a lot of other things.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I love oral, but for me, I think one thing that I've really brought back with my husband is like that making out session where you're rolling around in bed together and you're dry humping or, you're like placing your breasts all over him. And there's just something about like holding each other and like him grasping my hips and my ass, and just kind of enjoying each other in a way that I feel like we kind of did this more when we were younger, teenagers.
It was more of we didn't have a ton of reference points. It was this animalistic kind of, we didn't know what to do. And that's what we did.
Yeah. And so it's so important to resurrect that. And it's funny because the making out part, he isn't used to it the way until we, got together and I've really brought that forward. And so in the beginning, he was like, he would kind of start laughing like a few minutes in and it's like, cause it's longer than what you normally do that as an adult and as somebody in a long-term relationship. And the more that I study this, the more important I think it is to like make out every day. And it feels so good. And I think it's just very underrated.
I think it's very underrated as well. And I mean, contact in that way can release, oxytocin and happy chemicals and make you feel really connected to the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think making out is very underrated. I mean, it really gets me aroused, like long makeout sessions.
I love
Whereas
it.
I feel like, I feel like women are often feeling too busy to have, like to create this time and spaciousness for a longer sexual experience where they're going to have the most pleasure.
Totally. I think it's important to then actually schedule it in. It's like we're going to have a date night and it's sacred, just the way that you have your workout session at a specified time of the day.
Right.
you're going to have your meditation, whatever it is that you do religiously, you should apply that to your sex life.
Yeah.
You need to put in the effort.
Yeah. And so what did your relationship with sexuality look like? It sounds like you did some exploring with your ex, and then you had a single period, and then now you found your husband and are married. I'd love to learn more just about your learnings and takeaways.
So during my first long-term relationship in my 20s, that is when I feel like I was able to really explore my sexuality and feel really comfortable in bed and learn how I really enjoy to orgasm. And it was like a very, I think, liberating experience.
Sure.
And when I was single in my late 20s, I explored that a little bit more, but I think it's very rare for a casual hookup to feel really fulfilling for me personally.
Yes.
So I remember when I met my husband, I was actually really nervous because I really liked him. I was just nervous about how it was going to go down and feeling connected. And, the first time wasn't great. And I think I want to normalize that because I get a lot of questions like this just... we had sex a couple of times and it feels a little weird and awkward, and it's supposed to. It's actually, it being fireworks the first time is generally the exception. So,
or a sign of like mixed feeling in some way. Like
it could be, totally. But I think we need to normalize the fact that you're getting used to each other's bodies and you don't know what you both like, and you don't feel comfortable expressing your needs. And you don't want to hurt each other's feelings. And there's just so much
unspoken.
On. So much unspoken.
Yeah.
So over time, I felt more comfortable sharing with him what it is that I wanted. And we ended up building a fantastic sex life together. But it really is the concept of building it. And that's something that we should normalize.
Yep. Building it and talking about it openly. And I've had a lot of hookups like from field and stuff, but I feel like with some people that are like particularly kinky and really in touch with their desires and what they like to do in the bedroom, those two people, like them and I, could have a fun sexual experience the first time. But exploring more in like the vanilla world or like the regular dating apps, it's much more of a process.
Yes.
And at this point in time, I have no desire to have like a one night stand, because I've also found it takes me, longer to come the first few times when I'm with somebody, because there is so much going on in the head.
So much.
For men and women, there's just a lot of those inner dialogues.
Yeah. What was interesting was my husband, when we started going out, was like, you're very outspoken about what you want, and that's something that he's never experienced with a woman before prior to meeting me.
Sure.
And the funny thing was, in the beginning, I felt really uncomfortable. Actually, I was outspoken about certain things.
In the bedroom or in
bedroom?
Dating? Okay.
Dating as well.
Yeah. Love that.
But in the bedroom, just the way that I needed for things to happen in order for me to orgasm, I was having a hard time expressing myself. And that's from somebody who already has ease in communication about sex. So what I've learned is not everybody is going to feel comfortable sharing that initially, and that's totally okay. I think what matters is, maybe a month in, a couple months in, whenever you start feeling a little bit more comfortable, you can sit down and have a conversation like, this is actually what I need. I haven't been able to express myself properly.
Could you give examples?
Of what specifically?
Of like what you felt like you weren't able to express initially?
Or it was the way, so I'm only able to come through oral. And so it was the way that he was performing it. And he's very giving in bed. And, so he has patience and never made me feel rushed. But I guess there was something about it where I really wanted to pleasure him.
Right.
And I know myself, and I know that over time I'll feel comfortable giving more direction. So I just want to normalize that for anybody listening and feeling like I haven't been able to express myself, and that's totally okay.
Yes.
What matters is you maintain this constant communication about sex and not only tie it to the negative stuff, like the criticisms, and start normalizing this from the beginning. Like, mention what it is that you liked, and this felt really good, and I enjoyed this, and I want to explore that, you know, and I'm wanting more of this. That's a really great way for you to ask for something that you need. And eventually we ended up getting there, and it's just like, it's awesome.
I found that men are extremely receptive to that positive reinforcement and specifics.
Yes.
Like when I think women generalize to men, they like the specifics and the tangible. And when I've given partners, like for me, I usually come from a toy. And so if I like share that at the beginning, which also for people listening and watching took me so many months, maybe even years of practicing building that muscle of even saying that out loud,
right?
Because I thought there was something wrong with me for many years, and now I don't mind. But yeah, it's a process.
It is a process. Yeah. But women have a really hard time asking for what they want because for so many generations we've been disempowered, and we have been taught to place others' needs before ours and to take care of others. And so it just becomes this very inherent part of our, you know, upbringing that we're socialized to.
And to caretake in the bedroom too. To be out of our heads, like outward focused on the other person's pleasure.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you know me and you watch the podcast, you know that I like watching porn for my self-pleasure rituals. One of my favorite websites to go to is exoafterglow.com. What I have found with mainstream porn is that a lot of it is created for the male gaze. It's a lot about the man's pleasure, and it just doesn't feel super authentic and connected. What I really love about Afterglow is that it is for everyone, and it is founded by a woman. I've actually had the pleasure of working with her here in Austin, and I love their mission. You can also find educational porn on their website called EduPorn, and there is just so much to learn and watch there. So go to exoafterglow.com and use code EXOTHEA. As you guys know, I've been very curious about anal play with my male partners, and I'm really excited to share Butter with you guys. Butter Wellness makes men's sexual health and wellness products, including this perineum massager. This applied on the perineum, which is between the ass and the penis of a man, can create prostate orgasms, which are very, very intense orgasms. In addition to that, this tool can also create extra blood flow that goes to the pelvic region. So if anybody has any issues with ED, this can also support with that. This is not to be inserted. This is for external use only. And you can get 20% off by going to butterwellness.com and use code SEGGS, SEGGS.
There are 4 different types of trauma responses. There's fight, flight, and freeze, and then there's fawn. And fawn is a way for you to please others as a source of protection, right? And that's something that can happen to a lot of women in the bedroom. It's like you're just not able to ask for what you want because you can be worried about upsetting the other person. And maybe the partner that you're with is not going to react badly or be aggressive about it.
Right.
But we just have that ingrained in ourselves that we have a really hard time letting go and feeling comfortable voicing that. But men also suffer.
Definitely.
Because, they have all the pressure to have to provide and know all the answers. And it's hard for them to also ask for help and guidance. And it can be a blow to the ego. And I think it's all honestly just like the fault of how we've socialized genders.
Yeah. Something that has also taken me a lot of practice. I don't know if you have any advice on this, but like it took me a while to, like, if somebody had come over to my house or if I was on a date, like to actually tell the person in that moment that like I'm not interested, because it's hard.
Yeah.
But during my very slutty field phase, there would be times where I was like, okay, I think I like pretty confidently have a connection with this person. This is before I would FaceTime people as like a vetting process. And there were a couple of times where somebody would just come over to my place. And it was just kind of like, oh, this isn't a vibe. But I had to advocate for myself because much younger Thea who partied a lot, like she may have just had sex with them out of obligation almost, or not knowing how to articulate that she wasn't interested.
I've been there too.
But yeah. And it's still really uncomfortable, but I do now, if something like that happens, I've been like, hey, I'm not really feeling a connection right now. Or, maybe there's a little bit of the excuse of like, it's getting late, I'm tired, I'm not sure about this tonight, but let's be in touch. And all of that stuff feels so uncomfortable in your body and practicing it. But like, I've learned to care about myself so much more in those experiences, I feel like. And also like not ghosting people, like saying like, I'm not interested.
And what I love about that is when you reinforce your communication skills on things that are not related to sex, that actually enables your ability to ask for what you want in bed.
Yes.
And that's one thing that we launched with the Intimacy Card Deck to help couples talk about sex. Yeah. And we have a combination of question and action cards. And some of the action cards are asking your partner to give you a massage and specifying that you have to be very specific about what you want. Because if they're giving you a hand massage and you're telling them, I need a little bit more pressure here and a little less there, and I need you to move to the left or to the right.
Yeah.
When you're practicing something non-sexual like that, you end up building the confidence to then ask for what you want in the middle of sex.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I think they're very, the skills translate over.
Totally. And you're stepping into your worth when you tell somebody like, it was great meeting you, but I'm not interested. And that's totally okay.
It's totally okay. And I mean, what ends up being more harmful to the other person and a waste of your time is to like drag it on or do like a fadeaway type thing. It's better to just be
and
clear.
Ghosting, I hate.
Yeah. I think everyone's guilty of it at some point, but
I mean, if somebody's being unreasonable, obviously, but
I would rather be clear and send the person on their way. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is practice, and I've had kind of the opposite experience, which is funny and related to the Dominant Woman series I'm going to teach this summer. But it's like I started exploring being dominant sexually, and then that has now translated and trickled into my professional life because I no longer I feel like I've undone the conditioning of like, women should be quiet and meek like in the professional setting, and now I just feel like I'm handling business and my professional life more confidently, so it's kind of cool. They can go back and forth.
Love that for you. Totally.
But that's not going to be the majority of people's experiences.
That's funny because for me it's actually been the opposite. I historically have been dominant in the bedroom.
Oh really?
And ever since I became an entrepreneur, because I'm making so many decisions in my day-to-day life, I just want to surrender. I want to be dominated. Obviously, there are some moments, especially on vacation, when then I am not making all these decisions and I'm just enjoying that. Then I feel like I'm in that more powerful mode.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But it's
can kind of see you as a dom.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I feel you on the decision making. I just think it's all fun to play around with. But yeah, I mean, for any women listening, like I think we've all had those moments with sex, especially with newer partners, where we're like, this doesn't feel great, but it's okay, or like that kind of thing. Whereas now I say, and there's ways to communicate this stuff without making your partner feel like they're doing something wrong or they've hurt you or they're inadequate. It could just be as simple as like, oh, okay, well, I really like doggy style. Let's do that now. Like what,
Yeah.
I want people to start practicing those things because you should be, and I think that not using your voice in the bedroom like that can build up resentment towards sex.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Because as much as we can talk about how your libido works and spicing things up and having more toys and all of that, what's really going to make a difference is if you like the sex that you're having. If you don't, and you have everything in place for how sexual initiation should happen and what works for you. And then you're going to remember like, shit, the last few times that we've had sex, it's been so boring and so predictable and it's not enticing. I'm not going to want it.
It needs to be like a positive loop or whatever the terminology is, like reinforcement. It needs to be positive.
Totally. There was something really interesting that I read in Dr. Ian Kerner's book. So tell me about the last time you had sex. And he mentions how a sex script, which is a sequence of activities and behaviors that you do during sex, queer people have so much more variety. They have between like 9 to 12 different behaviors in a sex script. Straight people
and a lot of orgasms.
Have like, yes. Straight people have like 3. You know, you kiss, maybe you'll do a little bit of oral, and then you go straight to penetration.
Yeah.
And it's so predictable and so boring, and that needs to change.
Totally. That totally checks out.
More variety equals more orgasms, more sexual satisfaction, and sexual satisfaction is highly correlated to marital satisfaction. So it is important for you to prioritize that, unless the two of you are totally okay with not being sexual and not having, you know, a super exciting sex life.
Yeah. I think some people are okay with the routine. Yeah. The routine of it.
But few people are. Normally there is one person in the relationship
who's dissatisfied. Yeah. My queer friends definitely seem to be having a lot of orgasms during their sexual experiences.
Yeah. They're taking more time and they're adding in more variety.
And seeming to take off the pressure of it needing to always result in both people having an orgasm too. Yes. I think when there's less pressure for an outcome, it's more enjoyable of an experience regardless.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I also started using my voice for was sharing when I could tell I didn't really think I was going to have an orgasm, or it just wasn't really important to me. And like sharing that instead of like, I need to have an orgasm so that they feel fucking good about themselves. Like that's not what this is about. But that's what I was doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've built that with my husband. So sometimes when I'm really horny and he's not in the mood to fully engage, he's like,
do
you want me to make you come?
Hot.
You know? And I do the same for him.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not fully there, but
right. And also like penetrative sex can be like, I don't know, for us ladies, sometimes we have our hair and makeup done and stuff. And like, we can't, I don't know.
Totally.
Can get really fucked up. Like I'm a huge fan of mutual masturbation. I actually think I pulled one of those cards from your deck. Like,
yes,
it's so hot and fun. I'm also a voyeur, so I'm like, I like to watch, but
it's a great way for you to learn what the other person likes.
How they touch themselves
makes such a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fun.
More women need to touch themselves. We carry so much shame around that.
Definitely.
And that's such an important part of having better sex and owning your pleasure.
Yeah.
If you don't know your body, look at your genitals. You know, men they grow up fondling their penis.
Because it's all out there.
It's all out there, you know? And also just like we socially promote that. And as women, we're taught that it's shameful, it needs to be protected, and we don't ever really look at it.
It's like this, like,
There was recently on TikTok, like, can you pick out your vulva from a list of, from a picture of vulvas? And it's like, would you be able to do that?
Yeah.
So it's really important for you to open your legs in front of a mirror, get to know yourself, own it. It's beautiful.
I have resistance, but I should.
Yeah, no, there should be no resistance. And I think that ties into how our bodies can be such an impediment to enjoying sex, because it really is about us feeling the sensations and feeling comfortable, because the best sex is when you're not thinking about anything and you're really just surrendering. So if you're worried about how your stomach looks in a certain position or whether you have too much cellulite and that's bothering your partner, which by the way, it's not, all of these things.
None of those are going to equate to you being present. You know,
exactly.
Yeah, which is where.
So it's really important. And I actually wanted to give an advice on this because I think so many people struggle, both men and women, and curate what you consume. We live in an era where we're just like bombarded with information and especially visual information. If there's something that's not making you feel good, and a great way for you to know that is like when you're consuming a content, it's not just social media, but on TV, you're reading a magazine, whatever it is, and you ask yourself in the moment, does this make me feel better or worse about myself as I am now? And if it's making you feel worse, then mute it, stop consuming it, do what you need, unfollow, do what you need to do, but protect your mental health and find more people who look like you and make you feel empowered the way that you currently are today, because or else we focus too much on when I lose 10 pounds, I'm going to have better sex. And that's not how it should be. Yeah. Right?
Yes, I can relate very much to that right now. I actually did a big unfollow of people a few weeks ago because I was like influencers that have a certain amount of followers get paid to travel. And like I was following all these women and they're all in fucking Italy and have so much money and they're on yachts. And I'm like, I haven't gone on a vacation in years. Like I was just feeling this like resentment, and they're all so skinny and thin. And I was like, this is not serving me, because it's constantly making me feel like, why can't I not only look like that, but why can't I have that lifestyle? Like, what am I doing wrong? And so I did a huge unfollow. I unfollow a lot of curvy, mid-sized body positive models.
Love that.
And yeah, I had a pretty awful experience last year with Ozempic, actually, and like awful mental health wise. And so coming off of that, you instantly gain all the weight back because you haven't learned any new skills to not. And so I've been, it's been really, I don't think that I'm going to have better sex if I lose weight. I just know there is a point with myself and my body where I really do feel very sexy and like how I look. And I also feel like there's so much talk in the body positive community of like loving yourself exactly as you are. But I know that I feel my sexiest and healthiest a little bit less than what I am right now weight wise. But that's not meaning I don't have sex, but I just know where I feel really sexy and healthy and strong.
No, absolutely. And I've been there too. I think another exercise that has really transformed my relationship with my body is you get naked in front of the mirror every day and you describe all of the things that you love about your body to yourself. And in the beginning, we're going to be so critical because how we talk to ourselves matters. But if you keep doing this exercise consistently, it's an active process of learning how to rewrite how you think about yourself and how you talk to yourself. And we need to be kinder to ourselves.
Yeah.
So
at the beginning, was it like difficult for you to like find things, or what changed? Like you said, you were really critical at the beginning of that exercise.
Well, I've been curvier also, and I end up gaining more weight around my hips and my butt. And so when I gain weight, then it's like my pants right away, you know?
I hate when stuff stops fitting. Yeah. Not even because of the weight gain, because of like shopping.
Yes. And I have cellulite. And so these things always made me feel really insecure about wearing a bikini and how does my ass look and all of that. And so that was my main insecurity. And over time, I've just learned to really love that part of my body. Yeah. Because it supports me, and I do a lot of mobility exercises as well. And I think it when you start to approach your body and fitness from a perspective of longevity, it also, and not just aesthetics, it changes how you relate to it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the journey that I'm embarking on right now, because I have some like autoimmune stuff going on and food sensitivities. And so I'm really trying to use that as fuel to shift my eating habits, because it's pretty direct relationship. Like if I eat these foods for a certain amount of time, I feel more back pain and these like kind of arthritis like symptoms. And so it's like, I know from my past that trying to restrict anything is not going to work for me. So yeah, I'm excited to see what what unfolds when it's for me and my health and not for like, I gotta lose 10 pounds.
Absolutely. And it's all tied to like our sexual health is tied to our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health. So it really is a matter, like it's a combination of taking care of them all, you know, in somewhat of a balanced.
Definitely. Yeah. A lot of people ask, like they want me to talk more about sex and long-term partnerships. However, I'm not particularly qualified to do that, but is there anything else that feels top of mind to share for people that are in long-term relationships and wanting to spice stuff up?
Dr. Emily Nagoski, she has listed 3 characteristics for couples with lasting sexual connection.
Okay.
And the first one is they're really good friends who trust each other and admire each other. The second one is they prioritize sex. And even when they are in periods where they're having less of it, they acknowledge, like, listen, we're going through a phase and that's totally okay. But they make an effort to find each other once that phase passes. So that's how they keep that prioritization consistent in their relationship. And the third one is they recognize that they are perhaps following other people's models of how they should be living. And they end up creating their own rules.
Love that. Beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah. I think where it gets really sticky with sex is sweeping it under the rug kind of thing.
Yes.
In my last long-term relationship, it was like kind of did it once a week. It was this routine so that we didn't have to talk about the actual elephant in the room, which was like a lack of that connection or effort on either of our parts. And that's not sustainable. There's a pretty well-known divorce lawyer, and he was on the Lex Friedman podcast and had a really good interview about like divorce rates. And it's like, it all goes back to like these unspoken fractures and cracks. And like the last straw could sure be a sex thing or a breakdown in communication or even infidelity. But the cracks start so long ago from unspoken stuff.
The number one source of conflict amongst couples isn't a specific reason, like a theme. It's an overarching lack of communication.
So if somebody is already well into a long-term relationship and wants to bring more communication tools or spice up their sex life, where's a good place to start?
I think you can start by having a conversation about the conversation, especially if you're not used to having these conversations about sex.
Yeah.
And you can say, listen, sex is really important for me. And I know it's important for our relationship. I'd really love for us to sit down and have an open conversation about it.
Yeah.
Are you open
Plant
to
the
that?
seed so it doesn't feel like it's being sprung on, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's important for you to kind of reflect on what are the words and phrases that may feel really taboo or hard for you to express. Like write those down.
Like what?
The word pussy.
Oh, sure.
Dick. I want oral. Like it depends. Each person is different. But I think it's sitting down and really reflecting on what you find really hard for you to express.
Yeah.
And I think practicing in the mirror, just like you would, any other speech, is such a helpful thing. It helps you gain more confidence, practice what it is that you want to talk about. And if you don't want to have a conversation about the conversation, you can start indirectly and you can share an article or a podcast episode or a TV show. Netflix has a bunch of series now.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I found this interesting. What do you think about it?
Would you be open to?
Would you be open to it? Let's talk about it later on, and start making it a habit to compliment your partner on the things that you like that they do, because that reinforces positive conversations around sex. And so that communication around sex isn't always going to be tied to something that's heavy and daunting and negative.
Right. Yeah, definitely don't want that. I find that there are these certain themes with men in the bedroom of like they They don't want to feel like they're pressuring their partner into it.
Right.
They don't want to make them uncomfortable. And so things that you can do, like I hear those two themes a lot. So anything you can do to reinforce the things that you do like that they do, and to make them feel like you really want to be there doing it. And also if a woman, and this is in a hetero relationship, it's like, if a woman is having sex out of obligation, that people are in touch with each other's energies. You know, the man might know that you're not all in.
Oh, they know.
Yeah. And this gal Vanda, who I had on, the blowjob expert, she surveyed a ton of guys on like their top blowjob things, and one of them was like one of the top ones was just enthusiasm. Like, they don't want you down there if you don't want to be down there.
1,000%. Yeah. And it's really important to find ways in which you can find that enthusiasm inside of you. So it's like maybe you're listening to a song that excites you at the same time that you're giving a blowjob, right? And maybe you're going to match the rhythm to the song. Or you're going to find more ways to support the experience. So you're holding your hand, you're holding the dick while you're just kind of having your mouth at the top, you know, because that's also the more sensitive part. So you also don't feel like you need to
always have to be deep throating
the whole time, right?
Totally.
Adding in more variety and finding that excitement, because like when your partner's going down on you and they don't want to go down on you, it's the worst, you know, and ask them to guide you too.
Yeah.
You know, how is this? Do you like this? Do you want me to do something differently? Do you want me to pull on your balls? Not every guy likes that, you know, but ask and try to understand what it is that they enjoy more of, because then you're co-creating this experience together, and something that can be very awkward and maybe uncomfortable for you actually becomes something really exciting.
Yeah. I also find that just expressing what you really like people have great memories. Like, oh, that feels really good.
Yeah.
A guy is going to remember when he was doing that thing and it felt really good. He will do it next time, is what I've learned. So like,
absolutely.
you've got to express it.
You need to learn how to express yourself during sex through, you know, moaning, and or else your partner is not going to know what you like either.
And they're not psychic. No one
is.
No. So what inspired you to make this beautiful deck?
Thank you. So couples just have a really hard time talking about sex. We did a survey with over 500 couples, and we learned that what's really preventing them from having better sex, more variety in sex, more sex, is being able to actually talk about it. And I wanted to create something that didn't feel like homework.
Yeah.
And that was tasteful. And that really guided the conversation in an organic way.
Yeah.
So there are 2 levels of 69 cards each.
Lovely.
And I partnered with an artist who just did beautiful erotic artwork for it. So it's so beautiful that you're going to want to decorate your bedside table or your coffee table with it.
Yes, it's in my living room.
Yes, I loved when I saw that. And the first level is more romantic and thoughtful. It reminds you of what brought you together. Questions like, what did you like about me when we first met? What do you like most about our relationship? When do you feel the most attracted to me? What turns you on the most about me?
So definitely targeted for people in longer term relationships.
Yes, but friends of mine who are single, who purchased the deck when we launched as a way to support me, they played it on second or third dates. And they messaged me right away, and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is incredible. Like, because you're talking about things that you normally wouldn't talk about that early on, and you're understanding and you're understanding what the person wants. So that leads to really hot sex.
Okay. Early on hot sex.
That's great.
Sex. Okay.
Yes.
So not for couples only.
Because it's the card that asks the question, not you. So it takes a lot of pressure off of your back.
Yes. I feel it seems like when people bring up sex stuff, the other person's insecurities can get a little triggered of like, should I have been doing this the whole time? I didn't know this about you. Like having this kind of neutral middleman is good.
Definitely.
What blocks your sexual desire and what can I do to help? What sensual gift would you love to receive? Would you like to incorporate food during sex? If so, which ones and how? How should people incorporate food into sex?
I mean, peaches and cream, strawberry
Whipped cream,
cream,
strawberries.
That's an emblematic song from the 2000s, peaches and cream.
Do you get turned on by being watched or watching others have sex, kinks or fetishes? And then, you have some education in there. I love that as well. Like what a fetish is.
Yeah.
What would you like me? Ooh, that would be fucking hot on a first date. What would you like me to do to you that would feel good right now?
Exactly.
Awkward, but not.
But that's
hot.
something people have a hard time knowing what to answer.
Right.
When somebody asks
even
you,
in touch with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is an exercise as well for you to stop and think, wait, what is it that I actually want?
Yes.
And not saying what you think the person would want to do to you.
Yes, mic drop. Yes.
If you are watching or listening to this, you're probably interested in sex and or kink and are curious about finding new partners to explore things with. However, it can be difficult to find those people. The thing I love about the HUD app is that it's more than just an app. They have a community, a podcast, and a ton of education. And inside of their app is a bedroom feature, so you can select all of the things you're interested in, all of the things you want to try, all the things you don't want to try, and that can be shown to potential future partners. So to learn more, go to hudapp.com/sextalk. That is hudapp.com/sextalk, SEGGSTALK. I was recently giving a blowjob to a partner, and one of the things that I love incorporating into all types of play is lube. But specifically with blowjobs, I love being able to use this honeydew flavor of mochi melt because it makes it so much more fun and delicious for both parties. I also enjoy using it for penetrative sex. And in the past, I found that I can't really use flavored lube down there because it could upset my pH. However, Mochi Melt is pH balanced, it is food grade, and it is FDA approved, which makes it completely safe for use down there for the ladies and the fellas. If you want to try out Mochi Melt, go to mochimelt.com and use code THEA, THEA, for 15% off of your entire order. Mommy Thea recently created a profile on sensually.com, which is a sex-positive platform for people to both provide and seek out sex-positive and sensual experiences, which can take place both online and in person. They have a wide variety of creators on their platform, ranging from BDSM experts to sex coaches to escorts to erotic artists. They have it all. It is completely free to sign up, whether you want to create an account or seek out experiences. You can learn more by going to sensually.com. That is sensuali.com.
Yeah, and I think like we were talking about like practicing using your voice in it could still be sensual, but not necessarily an aroused state of like, I mean, it can be really hard for some women, including myself, before I went down this journey to use my voice at all in those romantic settings. And so even practicing, like if somebody's actively giving you a massage, oh, like, could you go a little harder? Oh, can you massage this left shoulder?
Totally.
I mean, there is so much conditioning for women for people pleasing that before I kind of found my voice, even getting a massage, paying $150 to get a massage, and it was too light, I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
I didn't want to inconvenience them, didn't want to be rude.
It's the fawning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real.
But like I'm paying for a massage.
Totally.
Like it's crazy. So yeah, a lot of people pleasing.
They did a study with, I believe it was 8-year-olds in California, and they served a group of girls lemonade, but in the lemonade they ended up throwing in salt instead of sugar so that it tasted badly, right? It was on purpose.
Oh no.
And the group of girls were drinking the lemonade and they stayed quiet. They didn't say anything. And then they served it to a group of boys separately, another room.
Oh my God.
The boys right away, this is gross. What's in this? It doesn't taste like the lemonade should taste like. They were verbal about it. And then they interviewed the girls after. And, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. And I didn't want to make them feel bad about it. And this is happening with kids at 8 years old. So,
holy shit.
Wow.
The
struggle is real.
And the gender conditioning of boys are rowdy, loud, speak their mind, no filter.
Yeah.
And women are... don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. That's literally that people
and
pleasing.
We carry that into the bedroom.
Oh,
yeah.
That makes me so sad.
I know, it made me too when I read about it.
Wow. Yeah. And in terms of like leadership and stuff too, I've I felt like I was conditioned to lead, that I still had to be like very soft and feminine, and like I can be smart and be a CEO, but I have to still be a certain way to not make men uncomfortable, to not be too powerful, too smart, or like not show too much boob, because then they would think that means something. Like just all these made up rules.
It's a very fine line for sure.
Yeah. Wow. So have you explored any kink or BDSM stuff?
Very lightly.
Yeah.
It's funny, becoming a sex educator, I have...
Probably get all sorts of crazy questions.
Well, that too, but I think, you end up learning so much about what's out there, what's possible, what are the different activities that you can engage in and explore. And I've just learned that I'm so vanilla.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so vanilla on the spectrum.
Aww.
And I love it,
Yeah.
and I think you need to own that when you are.
Yeah.
But things that I really like, blindfolding, using a feather and having your partner just like draw that out on your body. I love the sensation of the feather. It's really hot when you're blindfolded.
Yes.
So
in your body is what I found.
I love the massage candle. You set the mood, and, you have your partner massage you, and they'll slide right in, and it feels really good. And we also have played around with tying each other up, though it's just really comical for the two of us.
Yeah.
We need to take a class on that for sure. But
I mean, I think that there are like expert levels, but like the first time I tied my sub up with restraint, it was like, I don't think that was before the blindfolding started, because I was like fumbling around the room, like trying to get these things on my bed. Like it's not as smooth as the movies make it look.
Totally. But I think we need to normalize the exploration of different activities in bed and like laughing about it.
Definitely.
And finding out that you don't like it, and that's totally okay. Or,
1000%.
maybe you like it, but it's a little awkward. So you need to refine that, and you need to give yourself more time, and maybe find some resources online for you to discover how it actually works.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
We take it too seriously, I think.
Totally. Yeah, I think humor is vital in the bedroom. And I have had experiences where the person thinks I'm like laughing at them, and I'm like, no, this is just like funny, this experience.
Yeah.
It's very human. Sex is messy, and you're naked with somebody. Like, I don't know. It's very vulnerable.
It's adult play.
Yes.
And we need to approach it in a more playful manner, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you have a course. What are some of the themes that you focus on in exploring and educating people on?
It's called The Art of Sexual Desire. And the number one question that I get is about low libido. So I wanted to teach a course that helped people understand how your libido works and how you can understand its ebb and flows throughout your life, and really own that process and implement the change on your own. So we start by explaining the psychological and physiological aspect of it. Your desire starts in the brain, and the arousal is the physical manifestation of that.
Okay.
But it's really understanding the contexts that work for you, and really reflecting on like, what are the great sexual experiences that you've had and what made them great?
What do they have in common?
What do they have in common?
Yeah.
And what are the really bad ones and why?
Good point. Yes.
And what are the realistic aspects of the contexts that have worked well for you that you can bring into your life today? And reassess that at different points in your life, because that's going to change. You're an ever-evolving human being.
Definitely.
So what works for you today is not going to work for you when you have kids, or when your kids are 5, or when you're 50 years old. And I think it's just really important for us to normalize the evolution of how we experience desire.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, there's so many factors, I think, to arousal and desire. I mean, stress. Like, there have been times when I've been in more stress and it's not priority. I mean, starting the podcast full time recently, there's a lot more spaciousness in my life, and I'm having more orgasms. And also for me, about half of the month, like, my hormones definitely impact my life a lot. And about half of the month, like, I'm really not horny at all. It's kind of like this condensed window related to ovulation. And, but I mean, that's also to say I don't have a long-term partner. So I think it would look a little different if I was in bed every night with somebody. But yeah, there's so many things that contribute to that. For what about, I think that there's a lot of women coming to you and asking about low libido.
Mm-hmm.
In my past relationship and experience, there was a denial at play about like, I just wasn't very attracted to the person and we didn't have a strong sexual connection. Mm-hmm. And my brain was trying to play a lot of tricks on me though, to keep me in a relationship that felt very safe and comfortable.
Right.
So how could somebody kind of make that distinction?
So I think that once you learn how your libido works and mm-hmm. what are the contexts that you need in place for you to become aroused and for you to enjoy sex, right? Because again, it goes back to like, if you're not liking the sex that you're having, it doesn't matter. You're just not going to want it. Mm-hmm. And
Amen.
Taking the time to explore that with your partner and trying new things. If doing it on your own doesn't work and you really want to make sure that you've tried everything in your relationship, mm-hmm. find a coach or a sex therapist that's going to guide you, right? Yeah. And then if that really doesn't work, but you feel like you're desiring other people or other experiences mm-hmm. outside of your relationship, it's probably a sign that the person that you're with isn't it. Because sometimes we're totally okay with not having sex, not being sexual. And and then embrace that, right? Don't judge yourself for it.
Right.
But if you do feel like deep down you're craving something else, then it's probably a relationship that's not worth saving, right? Like you're frustrated and you've tried everything.
Yeah. You said something yesterday when we were talking about this, like not all relationships can be saved. And I think that that's important to talk about too.
Totally.
Because I think a lot of the self-help out there or relationship advice out there is going to try to teach you how to make it work and stick it out. And, you know, personally, I'm really glad I left that relationship because, you know, we were on a path to get married and have kids in my mind, but there was a lot of denial. Because everything else on paper looked good. But at the end of the day, when there's no chemistry or attraction, it really is more of a friendship. And
Absolutely.
It's up to those two parties if they want to spend the rest of their lives in a platonic friendship.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were desiring other people.
Yes, attracted to, and then kind of beating myself up for that.
Absolutely. And so I think that's a sign
yes,
that you're not totally dormant, you know, you're not asexual.
Right. And so going back to libido a little bit, do you want to talk about your understanding of how that works?
Yeah. So it starts in our head, right? And it's the desire that ends up triggering the arousal, but a lot of times of how sex is initiated, we don't give ourselves enough time to like get in the mood and warm up. And, you know, maybe when you're in a long-term relationship, you're going to look at each other and you're going to be like, let's have sex, you know, or a problem that happens with couples that have been together for a long time is they don't really touch each other unless it's actually for sexual initiation.
Oh, that's a good point.
And something that's really important is for you to touch each other every day, hug each other, caress each other, you know?
Yeah.
That helps to reduce stress. It strengthens your bond and it doesn't create the resentment from the partner who generally is more passive in the initiation and they feel like they're only being touched because their partner wants sex.
Yes, that's so a thing that I've had that experience of. It's almost like an eye roll the second like the person grabs my hips or does the thing. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
And you just want to have sex.
Exactly. So it's about really cultivating that connection every day. That's something that my husband and I do. And it's about sitting down and touching each other and connecting. Like, how was your day? What happened? Sharing something new that you learned. It's so important.
Cute.
Because foreplay starts when the last time you had sex ends. So it's how you're treating each other on a day-to-day basis that is going to dictate when the next time you have sex happens
Right.
and how hot it's going to be. And so if you are treating each other well and you're giving each other attention and you're prioritizing each other, that provides more space for erotic connection naturally.
Following you, what I see in just the few weeks that we've been super connected is really feeling like you and your husband are actively like courting each other.
Yes.
Like it really feels like you guys are like still making this effort to date each other and cook each other food and go on adventures. And it's like, it's so lovely to see that, because I feel like we often see this kind of shift after marriage, whether it's watching somebody's life through social media or friends, but this kind of shift of like an effort going away.
Absolutely. I think what helps is we plan surprise dates. So
Ooh, cute.
he'll organize something without me knowing, but I'll just know that there's a day that's set aside for us, or I'll do it for him.
Yeah.
Trying new things together. I really believe that good sex is so much a result of finding exciting things to do together outside of the bedroom, bringing in that novelty into the relationship.
Novelty.
Yeah. New experiences, because yes, like trying a new restaurant together is great, but try to do new activities. Like there's a place in New York called Happy Medium where it's an art club for casual artists. And we did recently a figure drawing class. There was a nude woman in the room, and you know, we're all sketching her, and it was just such a cool new experience to do together. Try a new sport. One thing that we recently did was we started going to the gym together. And while that may not classify as trying a new sport, the act of us doing something that we value and that makes us feel good together, and like me waiting for him to come home from work for us to, because he goes to the office really early. He's in the office by 7.
Jeez.
So he comes home earlier too. So then we go to the
very
gym
New York
together.
phrase.
Yes. But we go to the gym together, and in a couple of weeks of doing that, it's increased our bond, because we feel good about doing it together. It's this cute moment where, you know, I'm waiting for him, and I'll motivate him, he'll motivate me.
I mean, I leave after a workout, I feel aroused isn't the right word, but I feel powerful, and I feel like it's all the endorphins.
Yeah, and we take a shower together after, and that just naturally really spices it up. But it's finding new activities that you can do together and ways to surprise each other. So one thing that I do is, you know, we'll leave notes or send a message in the middle of the day. I'm thinking about you. I can't wait to see you later. Right. Or I plan something for you. I think it's so important for you to bring that into the relationship consistently and putting in that effort.
Definitely.
But going back to, you know, creating that desire in the relationship, the initiation makes a difference. It's understanding like what works for you. What do you need in place? And that's something we don't communicate. Like sometimes you need the bedroom to be organized and for the kids to be out of the house and all of these different things, that it's so important for you to communicate that with your partner so that you both know what needs to happen. For example, I like it when my partner is a little bit more aggressive. Like they grab me from behind, you know, they pull my hair, give me a kiss. Like I love it when he, you know, says some dirty things to me.
Sure.
And that's something that he had to learn.
Right.
Because
they're not going to know.
They're not going to know.
Psychically.
And it doesn't change overnight either. Right. So it's about having that patience too, and really seeing each other as allies. Because I think we end up we bridge this, we create this trench, and that only worsens whatever sexual connection, you know, that you have left.
Yeah.
And so when you sit down and you're like, I want to make this work.
We're on the same team here.
We're on the same team here, you know?
Yeah.
Creating new habits take time. And so I think that's also another important component. One of the exercises that I have in the course is called willingness to engage. And it's an opportunity for you to, it can also be classified as like scheduling intimacy, but you're going to have that dedicated window where you may not necessarily have sex, but you're going to explore, you know, connecting with each other. And you can find some sort of erotic stimulation. That can be touching yourself, watching something, massaging, whatever it is that you want to do. But it's a time where you're going to leave whatever worries you have at the door, or at least try to, and really focus on connecting with yourself and connecting with your partner and giving an opportunity for desire and arousal to take place.
Yes. Because with men, arousal can happen very quickly.
Yes. Like about 75% of men have spontaneous desire, but there's still 25% that don't and that are responsive, right? And that's something that we need to normalize. So we think that all men are like,
right.
And that's not true.
Right.
And that also declines with age.
Sure.
And so in my relationship, I have more of a spontaneous desire and my partner has more of a responsive desire.
Okay.
And for him, for example, like weekdays are hard because he undergoes so much stress at work. I mean, I do too, but I'm in that very small percentage of like, I think it's 10 to 15 people where stress actually boosts my libido.
10 to 15%
of people.
Okay. Yeah.
Who, when they are stressed, it boosts your libido.
That's
but
funny.
the majority, it's the opposite, right? It totally suppresses it. So for me personally, you know, I enjoy it in the middle of at the end of the weekday. And for my partner, no, it's like he needs to unwind. It's just been so much. And you know,
but a massage or a longer act could get him there, right?
Absolutely. But I think also when you have very different like windows of desire that can happen, you know, it's like if you like the morning and your partner likes at night, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think it's important for you to find a middle ground. And so, for example, our middle ground is like Saturday morning.
There you go.
But like at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not super early.
Right.
And we make it work because then it's a time where he's not worried about work. He's not stressed about it. And I'm able to also be very present.
Right. I love that.
So it's our sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you told me yesterday that you do not have plans to have children, and I would love to hear a bit more about that because I think that's also something that women, especially in long-term relationships or marriages, would love to just hear someone chat about.
Yeah. I think we place so much societal pressure on what are the things that we need in our lives to check the box. And so I have friends who feel like, you know, not only do you need to marry, but you need to buy a house, and then you need to have the house out upstate or out east, and you need to have a car, a certain kind of car, and all of these things. And then obviously the kids are a part of that package. And I think people don't question what it is that they really want. And that's so important. Something that was transformational for me was a couple of years ago, I did this course with KE. He's a big productivity creator on Twitter.
Okay.
And he used to work at BlackRock, which is a financial institution, just killing it very early on in his career. And at the height of it, decided to let everything go and move out to California, surf 2 hours every day.
Oh my gosh,
and
I love these stories.
Be very present with his family. And his kids now are like 10 years old. He's 2. And he's only been away for 40 days out of those 10 years. Aww. So he's been able to be very present in what he calls the magic window of when the kids actually want to hang out with you.
Yep.
And he was obviously able to save enough money where he lives off of that. And he makes some money as a creator as well. But he's been able to build a very like lifestyle business that supports everything that's aligned with his values. And so through the course that I did with him, it made me really reflect on what are the things that I truly want in my life? What do I value? And so how can I optimize my career to fit that and not my life to fit into my career?
Totally.
And that was the first nugget of like, do I want kids? Do I not want kids?
Sure.
And my husband and I have both been in really bad relationships before. And I feel like we've met each other later on in life. I'm 34, he's 47, and he doesn't have kids either. And we are just, I think, so grateful for the relationship that we have.
Yeah.
It feels so special that we just want to enjoy each other. We don't feel like anything is missing. And I don't buy into the having kids to take care of you later on in life kind of thing, or like who's going to be sitting with you at, the Christmas dinner table, that kind of stuff that people get into their heads about, right? And
sure.
And some people really are like, I have girlfriends who were born to be moms.
Totally.
Like they have that maternal thing in them and they love it.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that. And I'm just really excited to build a life where it's the two of us. I feel like what I'm building through my career, I'm helping other people out. There's still so much to do, and building community that way. And, you find other ways to have that family later on in life, when your parents may no longer be here. It really is about the community that you build.
Yeah, I love that. I just think it's really important for women to hear all the different pathways that your 30s and 40s can look like. And
I think there's a statistic that the happiest like subset of the population are single older women without kids. Which is like totally. So I think we also need to put things into perspective.
Right. After you guys got married, did you get like an influx of questions about children? I feel like that's like a very textbook thing to happen.
We do, but I think because we live in New York, people don't ask like, when are you going to have kids? They ask like, do you want to have kids?
Oh, good. Progressive.
And that changes.
Yeah.
It is. It's a difference. Totally.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law is very respectful.
Cool.
My mom doesn't really care if we have kids or not. So I think we also
not that we should be having them for our parents either.
Oh yeah, but there's a lot of parental pressure. And
Definitely.
so I think I lucked out a little bit in that scenario, but in general, and in New York, there's a Peter Pan vibe. Like people, kind of stay young for a very long time.
Yeah.
In that sense. So I think we're a bit shielded.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're making me very excited to come to New York. It's going to happen a couple times this year. And I'm just, I was only there for like 2 days, and it was before I did a big international trip many years ago. And it was really like intense and stressful, but I was also like partying and hungover and then traveling to Asia the next day. Like it was a lot, but I'm really excited to revisit it with new fresh eyes.
Yes. We're going to go out.
Yeah, I'm excited. What else would you like to share?
I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to have this super exciting sex life. And sometimes the best way for you to actually get excited about it is just accept that like right now things aren't where you want them to be, and take that pressure off of your back and let it flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's really important. People are not having these crazy sexual experiences the way that you might think everybody else is having. The company Hims came out with a study, I think it was a year or two ago. People think that others are having more sex than they are, and all
like
of that.
Everyone probably thinks that. And
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think what matters is just giving yourself the grace to explore what it is that you want, what feels good for you, what are the kinks and the fetishes and the fantasies that you have, and just make sure that you understand that things take time.
Yeah.
And it ebbs and flows, and that's totally okay.
Yeah. And what advice would you have for a woman who's in the dynamic where the sex is really great, but maybe it's an unhealthy or toxic relationship? And
We've all been there.
And the fear of not finding sex that good again.
You will find great sex again. I think it's not worth the toxicity and impact on your mental health. And so it's just really important to cut it off.
Dump him tomorrow.
Dump him. Absolutely. You will find great sex, and you will build great sex with someone. This is actually a question that I was at the launch of Dr. Emily Nagoski's book, Come Together, which is a phenomenal book. And somebody asked her, I love my partner, but we don't have a sexual chemistry at all. We've never had it. is it possible for us to build it? And before that, I used to always think like, no, if you didn't really have it,
Sure.
if you didn't have
That's
it in the
what I
first
would think.
year, like,
Right.
But she was like, listen, I think it's possible. I think you are able to build that if you actively put in the effort to explore. And I love that it's so beautiful because relationships are a culmination of building things together, right? Co-creating these experiences and being open to it. I think if you set it in your mind that it's not possible, then it's not going to be possible. But you know, if you think that it can evolve and you can explore together, you're giving yourself a chance.
Right.
So I think you can absolutely, and honestly, I think it's so much better for you to have, I think you can absolutely have a healthy relationship and an incredible sex life. But I think if you had to like choose, I think it's better for you to have a healthy relationship and a good sex life.
Yes.
It may not be the best sex of your life, but having somebody who is a partner, a true partner.
Yeah.
And who calms your nervous system. And I'm saying that because in my last relationship, like, you know, sometimes I remember I ended it with him because we were at a wedding and the bride said, "You make me a better person." And that's how I know that you are the one. Dude. And I remember looking at my partner at the time and I was like, you make me somebody unrecognizable.
Oh.
I become so much more reactive and aggressive. And he brought that out in me in a way that just wasn't healthy. And my husband is somebody who genuinely calms me down and makes me feel good and puts me up.
Yes.
You know? And I think that's so important for you to find, because then that leads to a good sex life.
Right. It's so funny you mention a wedding. When I realized my relationship was not working, was at a wedding, because you're seeing these people declare to spend the rest of their lives together.
Yeah.
And I had invited my ex to the wedding and he didn't want to come. It was my cousin's wedding. Just didn't want to go. And I was taking photos of my cousins and their partners and their husbands. And it was like, why is he not here? Like, I want somebody that is so present and with me and willing to go on adventures, aside from all of the lack of desire and all that other stuff. But like, it was at a wedding. It was like, this isn't right.
It puts a lot into perspective for sure.
It does.
Yeah.
When you're seeing people make that commitment.
Yeah. But if it's a toxic relationship, dump him.
Leave. Yeah. And I think that there's something to be said for there being a performative element to really heightened kind of chaotic relationships where it's like this push and pull energy and the sex is to like keep them or to, I don't know, it can be good for these kind of wrong reasons.
Totally.
Whereas sex in longer term relationships that is coming from a place of trust and safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great conversation.
I love this. Thank you
know.
for having me.
Of course. I could talk about sex all day.
Me too.
We'll be doing more of it soon in New York.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode today. Be sure to stay in touch with us on socials at Seggs Talk Radio Podcast. That is SEGGS Talk Radio Podcast.